What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another video, and this time I'm going to rank all 13 John Carpenter movies that I own. I don't own every single movie that John Carpenter's made, and I really don't have any aspirations to want to seek out the remaining movies of his filmography, mainly because I just don't have any interest to want to watch them. So, with all that being said, let's get this started. So, coming in at number 13 is Prince of Darkness, made in 1987. So, I reviewed this movie last year, and my thoughts on it still remain the same. I don't think Prince of Darkness is a bad movie, but I don't think it's a great movie either. I think the main flaw with Prince of Darkness is that it takes way too long to get started. The first hour of this movie moves at a snail's pace, and that could work if you have characters to hold that up. Unfortunately, aside from Donald Pleasance, not all the characters in this movie are really memorable, and they're all kind of stock and kind of boring. And the movie doesn't really start to really pick up steam till you get past that 1 hour mark, and the last 40 minutes is where this movie actually starts to get remotely interesting. But the build up to that and the lead up to that, it's kind of boring. I like the whole concept of science, of science and Satan and all that stuff, but I think the execution was a little off, and I think it needed much more refinement. So I stand by my grade of a 5 out of 10. It's a middle of the road movie. It's not bad, but it's not really anything that you're going to remember after you watch it. That's just me personally. Coming in at number 12 is John Carpenter's remake of Village of the Damned, made in 1995. Like Prince of Darkness, Village of the Damned doesn't really do anything for me. It's not a bad movie by any stretch of the imagination, but it's kind of boring. The only good aspects are that Christopher Reeve puts in a decent performance. You have an appearance by Mark Hamill, and the whole concept of these children, possessing this small town and holding them captive is really creepy. This movie does have some really good atmosphere to it. It has good directing to it. It has a killer soundtrack to it. But overall, I don't consider it to be really all that memorable. And it's kind of hard to remember this movie after you watch it, at least to me personally. Maybe this movie has fans who deem it to be awesome. I'm not one of them. But I don't hate it, and I give it a solid 5 out of 10. Coming in at number 11 is Escape from L.A. from 1996. This is the sequel to Escape from New York. Listen, Escape from L.A., it's not a bad movie. It's a stock, generic science fiction action movie. It doesn't have the freshness or uniqueness of Escape from New York, and that really hurts L.A. Like, Escape from L.A. comes across more as just Carpenter doing a self-parody of Escape from New York. But that doesn't mean this movie doesn't have some good things in it. You get an appearance by Peter Fonda. You get an appearance by Bruce Campbell. You have Steve Buscemi as Mapped to the Stars Eddie, who is a funny fucking character who I love a lot. And you have Kurt Russell being badass as Snake Plissken. I think this movie's overall flaw and biggest flaw is that the overall villains, they suck. Cliff Robinson as the president, he's okay. He's the overarching villain, but the villain of Quavo, he's fucking terrible. He's not good at all. I hate him as a villain. This movie has a lot of moments where it goes into the silly territory, where it goes into the territory of silly, and you kind of forget that this is supposed to be a sequel to a kind of serious movie, because this movie goes into nearly cartoon land. But it's at least entertaining, and I'm going to give it that. A 5 out of 10 for Escape from L.A. Could have been much better than what it really was. Coming out at number 10 is In the Mouth of Madness, 1994, with Sam Neill. I like this movie. This movie has a Lovecraftian feel and tone to it. I think it can get a little bit silly in a lot of areas and a little bit too over the top in a lot of areas, but it's entertaining. I like it better than the 3 movies that I had just talked about previously. I think it's a lot of fun. The third act, though I think is really just off the wall, batshit crazy. It's still, it'll stay with you. It's got some creativity to it, and that's why I'm gonna give it a solid 7 out of 10. Coming in at number 9 is Elvis, the made-for-TV movie with Kurt Russell, made in 1979. So this movie came out a year after John Carpenter had his big success with Halloween, and this was his first collaboration with Kurt Russell. I'm gonna say this: I liked the movie Elvis. I thought it was actually pretty good. I think Kurt Russell as the title character did an awesome job. And I think, and just seeing John Carpenter not direct something that's horror is actually really fun to see. Like, this is like a dramatic piece that he's doing. And Carpenter has openly said that he's a big fan of Elvis Presley and stuff like that. So you can see the love and appreciation that he had for Elvis. And that shows in this movie. I don't think it's one of the best biopics I've ever seen in my life, but I think it's a very solid and kind of underrated biopic. That's why I'm going to give it a solid 8 out of 10. Coming in at number 8 is Vampires from 1998. James Woods is a lot of fun. It has a good supporting cast, but it has a very underwhelming villain. And that's all I got to say about Vampires. I mean, the action of this movie is really well done. It's gory, it's gory, but the villain brings it down a lot. Like, I don't feel the dread nor the menace, and you don't get no cool scenes with the hero and the villain in Vampires. And that's why I'm going to give it a solid 8 out of 10. The villain is the biggest flaw. Everything else in Vampires, I actually think is pretty cool. Coming in at number 7 is Christine, John Carpenter's adaptation of the Stephen King novel of the same name. This movie was made in 1983. Christine. I like Christine. It's a solid movie. This ain't gonna go. This will not go down as one of John Carpenter's all-time classic movies, but it's a movie that I like and I've seen more than I've seen a lot of times, and I like it. It's a solid adaptation of the Stephen King book. I think John Carpenter omitted some things that should not have been omitted, which is why Christine is just this card that just goes on a kill rampage. And there's no real explanation as to why this is happening in the movie. In the book, you get a whole explanation. I think if John Carpenter would have retained that aspect, then the Christine would have been a much, much better movie. But when you watch Christine, it's really not one of Carpenter's best made, best directed movies. And you can tell that he was just doing it for a paycheck. You don't see the passion in Christine as you would at other John Carpenter movies. And that's a shame, because Carpenter and Stephen King, that should be an awesome combination. They should make a killer movie. Instead, you get a movie that's good, but could have been much better than what it was. And that's why I'm going to give it a solid 8 out of 10. I think the positives do outweigh the negatives, but at the same time, you can tell that John Carpenter's heart wasn't fully into Christine, because if it was, then it would have been much better it'd be much better than an 8 out of 10. Coming in at number 6 is Big Trouble in Little China, made in 1986. I love Big Trouble in Little China. I love the goofiness of this movie. I love the wackiness of this movie. I love everything about Big Trouble in Little China. This movie knows that it's silly. It knows that it's just stupid and dumb, but it's just a lot of fun. And that's why I give it a solid 8 out of 10. Coming in at number 5 is They Live, made in 1988. They Live is awesome. Roddy Piper and Keith David are amazing in this movie. They have one of the greatest fight scenes ever put to film. The social commentary of this movie still holds up in today's standard, with the whole manipulation of consumerism and the fact and the whole alien aspect. I think John Carpenter made it work without being hokey or ridiculous with it. Yeah, They Live is awesome. 10 out of 10. I got nothing bad to say. Coming in at number 4 is The Fog, made in 1980. I love The Fog. This is just a good old-fashioned ghost story that has creepy atmosphere, cool characters, just this an interesting forebodingness to it. The Fog is everything you want in a horror movie. It's got a creepy atmosphere. It's like I said, it's a good old-fashioned ghost story. 10 out of 10. Coming in, okay, now the top 3 is where this list might get controversial for some. Coming in at number 3 is Halloween, 1978. Yeah, I do not consider Halloween to be the greatest movie John Carpenter ever directed. That's not to take away from Halloween. I love Halloween. The movie is fucking amazing. It's awesome. I just don't consider it to be the best thing Carpenter ever directed. And I think I think the 2 movies that are above Halloween outdo it in a lot of ways. But when you watch Halloween, over 40 years later, this is still a modern horror classic. And Michael Myers, he's an iconic character. You can't degrade or berate Michael Myers. Coming in at number 2 is Escape from New York, 1981. Escape from New York is what a Punisher movie directed by John Carpenter would look like. This has the look and feel of a graphic novel comic book. Take out the character of Snake Plissken and replace it with Frank Castle, you basically have one of the greatest Punisher movies ever made. And that's how I describe Escape from New York. This movie is badass. It's science fiction action to its core. You got the Duke of New York, played by Isaac Hayes, who's an awesome villain. You got Donald Pleasance as the president of the United States, who is a good character. You got you have just a barrage of cool characters. You got Cabby, played by Ernest Borgnine. You have the character of Brain. You have Adrienne Barbeau. You just have this cool, just gritty, dark atmosphere of a rundown New York that's been turned into a super prison. Everything about this movie is awesome. I love it. I love Escape from New York. This movie's awesome. Coming in at number 1, and my all-time favorite John Carpenter movie is The Thing from 1982. That's right. I love this movie. I think The Thing is excellent. This is John Carpenter on his A game. Perfectly mixes atmosphere and suspense with gore and just guttural, just disgustingness. The Thing creature itself has a uniqueness to it. The whole concept of the Thing is just unique. This creature that's able to assimilate its prey and blend in is just inherently just creepy. It's scary. It's just unnerving. I love this movie. Atmosphere, the claustrophobia, everything about the Thing works for me. And again, you got Kurt Russell, who's awesome. You got Keith David, is awesome. And you got a supporting cast around them that is just also just very, very good. And this movie's full of a lot of iconic catchphrases like, "You gotta be fucking kidding me." And just these cool fucking scenes of just disgustingness. I love it. The Thing is awesome. So yeah, that's my ranking of the 13 John Carpenter movies that I own. Let me know yours in the comment sections down below. Like the video and subscribe, and I'll check you back next time for more.